What is going on, NFL fans? I'm Jay Allday. In today's episode, I want to break down the current NFL playoff picture, the teams that are on the bubble, teams that are on the hunt, and teams that have already locked up spots for the playoffs. Let's get into it. On the screen is the current playoff picture if the season ended after week 16, guys. All right, so we would have the San Francisco 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens locking up the number one seed and getting byes. Then we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a home game against Dallas, Detroit at home against the Rams, and the Philadelphia Eagles at home against Seattle in the NFC. In the AFC, we have Jacksonville at home against Cleveland, Kansas City at home against Buffalo. Man, another Kansas City-Buffalo playoff game. That would be awesome. And then we have Miami at home against the Colts. I don't know if the Colts are going to lock up that last spot. They've been playing super bad. Now I want to show you guys what teams from each conference have locked up playoff spots and what teams are on the bubble and what teams are still in the hunt in week 17. There's a lot of games in week 17 that have playoff implications, guys. So in the NFC, the 49ers, Lions, Eagles, and Cowboys have all locked up playoff spots. But that number one seed is still up in the air. We have three teams that are 11-4 and the Cowboys right behind them at 10-5. Any one of those teams could potentially win the NFC and get that number one seed. The 49ers, Eagles, and Lions with a better chance of getting those potential spots. And man, this week is a lot of playoff implications. And then in the AFC, it's completely wide open. The Ravens and the Dolphins are the only two teams that have locked up playoff spots so far. There are still a ton of teams in the hunt. We have the Chiefs, Jaguars, Browns, Bills, Colts, Buccaneers, Rams, Seahawks. And then on the bubble, we have the Texans, the Vikings, Steelers, Falcons, Bengals, Packers, Raiders, Saints. All these teams are still alive. So I want to go through all the games in week 17 and give you the playoff implications for each game. The first game I want to talk about is the New York Jets on the road playing the Cleveland Browns. Joe Flacco and the Browns, if they win, they are in. The Jets have already been eliminated, so I look for the Browns to lock up a playoff spot with this win over the Jets. Next up, we have the New England Patriots traveling to Buffalo to play the Bills. The Bills, if they win both of these games and the Dolphins lose both of these games, they could potentially win the AFC East. But with a win over the Patriots, they pretty much lock up a wild card spot, but their eyes are on the division. So I look for the Bills to dominate the Patriots in this AFC game. And if they win the division, that means they get a home game in round one because they're not going to get a bye because it looks like the Ravens are going to lock up the first round bye. Next up, we have the Falcons traveling to Chicago to play the Bears. Whoever loses this game, their season is all but over. And whoever wins this game, they still need a lot of help to get into the playoffs, but they have the potential to lock in a spot with some other teams losing. So look for this game to be really competitive and a lot of fun. Next up, we have the Raiders traveling to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Both of these teams need to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. But if either one of these teams lose and the Jaguars win, that eliminates them from playoff contention. So this game's going to be really close, and they both need a win. The Colts have a better chance of making the playoffs than the Raiders do, but they have not looked good. They lost that game to Atlanta, which they really needed to win last week. And then we have the Rams at the Giants. The Rams need to win this game. The Giants are all but done, but the Rams are looking to get into the wild card spots in the NFC, so the Rams have to win this game. Then we move on to the New Orleans Saints traveling to the red-hot Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield has looked really good, but if the Saints lose this game, they won't win the division and they're not going to get into the playoffs. It's a must-win game for the Saints. It's not as must-win for Tampa Bay, but if they win this game, that pretty much locks up their spot to win the division and get a home game in the playoffs. Then we move on to Pittsburgh, traveling to Seattle to play the Seahawks. It's never easy to play in Seattle. If Pittsburgh loses this game, their playoff hopes are pretty much over because of tiebreakers. And if Seattle loses, they're still alive, but they really want to win this game, and that'll help solidify one of those final spots in the NFC for a wild card position. They will be on the road in the playoffs, but they still will limp in, and it looks like they'll end up probably playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Next up is a game with little playoff implications. The Chargers are obviously already eliminated, and the Broncos would need a lot of help with a win here and a win next week, and pretty much every other team that's competing with them to lose. I don't think the Broncos are going to make the playoffs. They could potentially limp in with a win here. It's a must-win for the Broncos. If they lose, their season is all but over. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. We have two teams that look pretty good in stretches during the regular season, but they haven't been playing so good as of late. The Bengals have to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. The Chiefs are pretty much going to win the AFC West because the rest of the division is terrible. They don't have to win this game, but they really want to turn the mojo around in Kansas City. They've looked terrible as of late. That big blowout loss to the Raiders. They're turning over the ball a lot. They have to win this game, in my opinion. Not so much to get into the playoffs, but to kind of get that momentum going so they can win some playoff games. And then we have the Packers and the Vikings. This is a must-win for both teams. Whoever loses is out of playoff picture, and whoever wins has the potential to sneak in for that final wild card spot in the NFC. I like the Packers in this spot, guys. The Vikings, their defense is pretty good, but they're reeling. That offense is terrible, even though they had Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, two great young receivers, but the quarterback position is still a huge question mark. I like the Packers to steal a close game on the road, 17-14. All right, guys, there's a lot of games with playoff implications in Week 17. There should be a lot of fun games. Let me know in the comments below, what games are you looking forward to the most? Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.